This is Steve Laffey's Fixing America. And now, broadcasting live from the Fixing America Command Center in Fort Collins, Colorado, here is your host, Steve Laffey.
Good afternoon, Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We appreciate you tuning in. Newsday Tuesday today at LaffeyRadio.com. And remember, you don't have to just listen to it live. I know a lot of people out there are, but you can, when you tell your friends about it, they can just do a self-loading app, go on your small device, and type in Laffey Radio, and it should load. So you can just listen to the show in your car. A lot of people do that. That's sort of the wave taking off, not just here, but that's what a lot of people are doing. Who needs to listen to all the 3 or 4 stations that you're forced to listen to on AM driving home with saying the same exact thing over and attacking people and so forth? At Laffey Radio here, we just have a different thing. Usually we take a large project, minimum wage, balance the budget, and we solve a big problem. We tell you specifically whether it's Social Security, health care, how we're going to solve that problem. Today, Newsday Tuesday, we have a little more fun. We take like 8 problems. And some are sort of funny. I mean, we're just things that we're going to talk about today. And some are sad. But we take it in smaller bites. It's kind of fun for me to do that once a week. By the way, tonight will be the State of the Union address by the President of the United States, Barack Obama. And tomorrow, and probably for 3 days, we're going to take the show that he puts on tonight, and we're just going to play it. We're going to stop it, and I'm going to comment on it. It's not going to be exact. I guess they call it Laffey's response. In fact, there's a big article today about what a curse it is to do the response. I don't know who they chose for the Republican Party, but now people don't care about the Republican Party, so everybody just does one, right? So that's just a response afterwards. I'm sure different groups of within the party of the Republican Party or whatever party it wants to will do a response, but we here will just do something more than a response. We're going to critically go through through his speech and point some things out, and you'll hear his whole speech again. So you don't even listen tonight. Just listen tomorrow. And anyway, we'll take that off of C-SPAN, and we'll go from there. But anyway, I want to tell you a little bit. Well, one other thing, by the way, before I get going. It is Super Bowl Sunday on Sunday, and so I broke down and bought a new couch because the church that we go to, a lot of people are coming over. I guess a lot. So maybe some people come over. Maybe nobody's coming over, but I had this couch I inherited from this wonderful guy who sold us the house. And when we bought the house, we bought all this stuff. I slept in his bed, and I'm pretty cheap, so I didn't want to replace anything. So slowly but surely, my wife has convinced me that it'd be probably good to replace some of the stuff. So we replaced his bed. Finally, today, we replaced his couch, and we bought an American-made couch, which, again, can be done. You look around. We ended up getting the floor model. It was more expensive, I think, a little bit more, to buy an American-made couch. I'm not sure it was the right color, but it was made in America, so that's what we got. And, you throw some throws over. I guess they call them throws, like blankets. They now call them throws. It's an upscale term for blankets. And so you throw those things over it, and then you can match the color of the room, I guess. I don't know. And I'm kind of colorblind in this stuff. I really have no idea what matches or not matches. So hopefully, I didn't put my suit on today, I just noticed. So we got that going. So we got another. So it can be done. Before I get going, this whole thing about buying American, it can't always be done. I don't much care about, some items that just don't make in America. But furniture can be bought in America. And I got a high-quality piece of furniture. It was like a $2,100 item. We got it marked down to $1,600 because we took the floor model. And if it doesn't work up there, we'll put it down here one day. But at least we have new kids. By the way, my kids are jumping around. I think it's great. It's amazing. But first topic today, to get onto it, I have a great friend of mine. I very rarely see him. I haven't seen him in many years. But I went off to Bowdoin College. We were freshmen. There was a senior living by himself. Not that he was a recluse or anything, but he was a senior. He was there for like one more semester in our dorm, in Appleton dorm, down the first floor. And he was the greatest economics major. He was the economics tutor. And so I met him. He gave me Atlas Shrugged to read, which I did, and so forth. So I learned a lot from him, both in economics, and over the years we've kept in touch. And he puts out his own blog site. And it's not like this guy's really smart. I mean, sometimes we disagree, but it's not like we can disagree on things. But he always has a very clear thinking on stuff. And it's called the Economic Man Blog, economicmanblog.com. And so he puts his stuff out once a month. He's really an investment banker. And he put one out about work versus welfare. And I just need to go through it because it's really good. It caused me to think about some of the things I've said on the show here at LaffeyRadio.com, which, by the way, is on Facebook at Laffey Radio, and follow us on Twitter at Laffey Radio. And he was reading The Economist and talking again about probably what President Obama, will talk about tonight. Scolding Republicans for their, he calls it the retrograde belief that extended unemployment benefits reduce work incentives. And so President Obama said he couldn't remember ever meeting an American, quote, who would rather have an unemployment check than the pride of having a job. And we've done shows on this. Now, granted, there's still a lot of people around, many millions of people who would never, no matter what, they'd starve to death before taking welfare. But as time is going on in our country, that has changed. And that's a real problem for America and Americans. So he says, Roger says, for example, it's pretty clear he hasn't met any of the 106 people described in an article on the preceding page of The Economist entitled Fishy Tales, and they're under indictment for receiving $2 million in disability checks. And so not really unemployment, but the same process that people are scamming the system, and people will continue to scam the system. And it gets back to what we've been saying about a lot of things that have been going on. For example, World Trade Center, 9/11. Now, how many they indict? 400, 300? I forget how many they've indicted of ex-firemen and policemen who took their version of unemployment, went off on permanent disability, and scammed the system and were caught like these people were caught, playing basketball, using jet skis, and Roger says holding a rather sizable modeling off the coast of Costa Rica on a vacation paid for by me and you, and you and me. And we've gone through also the spectacular rise, the spectacular rise in disability of Americans on Social Security disability, where years ago it was very, very hard to get to, and now it's actually pretty easy. His column cites that from the period of 1999 to 2014, new claimants for disability have risen 7 times faster than the increase in the general population. It's an amazing, I didn't put it this way in the show we talked about it. It's a better way to put it. 7 times faster. Quote, either has been an epidemic of clumsiness in America, or perhaps there are factors other than, quote, pride, which enter into people's occupational choices. And so he also goes through this thing. He puts it all together very nicely. We've seen a drop in the people in the workforce. And I've been talking about that from 63.5 to 62, and it's been going on even as supposedly the economy is recovering. And Roger puts it in a way that it causes you to think that, where is it right here? Well, anyway, I can't find it right here. But here he goes on to say, Obama should go out and meet some of the millions of people who have dropped out of the labor force. Here it is. Oh, here it is. Or at least the official labor force. A lot of these people are working. They're just working under the table. And there's been a rise in this. People, what we call, quote, under the table, who, because of tax laws, because of incentives, because you can still collect, and because, another thing we pointed out, there are now 39 states, according to the Cato Institute, that don't require claimants to be looking for a job in order to collect more in state and federal benefits than a secretary earns. In 11 states, the benefits are greater than a starting teacher's salary in a public school. 39 states. And I remember telling you about Rhode Island being one of them. I don't know about Colorado, but when people left my office, being as mayor, many people just went on unemployment and filled out a form online, and no one ever contacted them. Far cry for when I was a kid. My first job, my second job, whatever, was to clean bathrooms at United Parcel Service. And I went to the unemployment office to get that job. I think I was 16, maybe I was 17, but I went to the office. I went to the unemployment office. There was an ad, and they called up and got me that job. And I went and cleaned the bathrooms, and then realized that's really not what I wanted to do. So I went to college. And so anyway, he goes through some of the thought processes, I think, in a great way, of people gaming the system, and that we as a country, due to the fact that we're not a homogeneous population, there's a lot of immigration. There's a lot of increased mobility, he writes, that people don't see this as a stigma. They're moving around. They don't know the people. It's not like we're all one big happy family. It's like, Jimmy, what are you talking about? You're not working. You get over there and work for Uncle Larry. I mean, People live in different states now. We don't have this, little house in the prairie thing. And we're not Norway. We're not Norway, where, their system has worked for them, but they have enough things in their society, cultural factors, that offset the scamming of the system. This has nothing to do, by the way, about helping people who really need help. Nothing to do with that. So if someone's taken a quote, and they'll take only the first part I said, nothing to do. We obviously want to help, will help people who for some reason have fallen out of our safety net. And there's always going to be them. And some of them will be permanently disabled. Some will not be able to get back in. Some will be in horrible crashes. But there's a lot of people. It can't be that at 7 times the growth in the population, that people are on disability versus years ago. Can't be. That can't be the growth rate. There's got to be something changing about the people here in America. So he also cites that we need a simpler system. There's 126 separate federal anti-poverty programs. And of course, the states have a lot more. He writes, this is madness. It is madness. Total madness. We need one program. Then things that we don't think about here in America, he points out. The United Kingdom, did do a more holistic approach where they've taken and put a cap on it at £500 a week. Then they lowered it to £400 a week. So to reflect the take-home pay of a typical family. And they kind of made it a holistic approach. And I guess people really liked it. And I think here in America, people would like it. We need, and Roger puts forth many solutions here, one of them being that we need to not subject people. And Larry Kotlikoff, my friend, the professor at Boston University, has written about this many ways, that when you've got people in different states and different tax rates and different poverty programs, you've got a situation where people can be put, as they try to get out of poverty, as they try to get off food stamps, where people get put into situations where they're in higher marginal tax rates than they should be. We need to start people off from the bottom with basically near zero, and as they come out of it, like the earned income credit that we have in this country, that they get to a higher marginal rate, but not one that causes them to say, why am I working? I'd be better off not working. We can't have that in this country. And we have it, as we've seen, in so many states, either by not checking in on people or having, states so different in what they provide in benefits. And here's a couple of the solutions, and we'll take a quick break. But I thought it was important to point it out. If you get the chance to read his economic, in fact, we should have Roger on. He's smart in many ways, Economic Man blog. But take a look at what other people have done that's been successful. We've got to have benefits that calibrate to reflect differential living costs, he writes, in different parts of the country. Now, the problem with that is that there are different states and they've got different rules and so forth. But, but they are wide ranging. And what you do have is some welfare hopping going on. My old state in Rhode Island, it was one of the last states where they changed the welfare laws that you could go there. You could only have 5 years on welfare, but you could go there after being in New York, let's say for 4 years and 11 months, and Rhode Island wouldn't check. So you had like 5 more years. Well, we had more people on welfare, And he finishes up with, finally, a simplified and unified negative and positive income system be easy to avoid the poverty trap and produce strong incentives to start earning. That's what we need. And hopefully that's what the president's going to talk about tonight. I don't think so. He talks more about people's rights, which is wonderful. We have our rights, than opportunities and how we get people back into the workforce. That's what's needed. We need to get people back into the workforce where they see a bright future. And we're going to talk about the new Wall Street Journal poll that came out where people don't in America. They don't. I'll give you a little hint if you hadn't seen it. People don't see a bright future for America. They think the future is dismal by an overwhelming majority. Forget about what they say about the economy. It's how they describe America. Anyway, Steve Laffey, Newsday Tuesday. Don't forget tomorrow. You're going to tune in. You're going to see us review the State of the Union. It may take us all week to do so. We're going to stop it. It's going to be interesting. No one else is going to do it this way. We're going to take the whole speech and really dig down into it. We'll take a quick break here. Be right back with some more stories.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
Picture Picture this, your next trip, Utah, 5 national parks. First, Zion. You're walking, the ground rises, the ground drops, the ground becomes water. Next, Bryce. You're riding a mule. You're riding a mule under giant orange strip castles. You are not dreaming. You will not forget this. On to Capitol Reef. Take the scenic route, the really scenic route. Take a path you've never taken and see the stars for the first time. Now for Canyonlands. You're riding a bike. You're riding a bike on Mars. Now you're riding the rapids. Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Classic. Arches, 5:32 a.m. Some things are worth racing the sunrise for. The horizon lightens. You round the corner. Whoa. This is Life Elevated. The Mighty Five. 5 iconic parks, 1 epic experience. Plan your trip at visitutah.com.
I'm always up for a challenge. It's the feeling of accomplishment that drives me. And there's no better challenge than serving part-time in the Coast Guard Reserve. I protect my country, work with the best and brightest. I get great pay and benefits in return. The Coast Guard Reserve is important work. I get to serve my community, and it's always rewarding.
If you were born ready, there's a new challenge waiting for you. Learn about serving part-time at gocoastguard.com/reserve.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
Well, I'm standing on an anonymous Beijing street that's 3 full city blocks away from the courthouse where Su Zhiyong was just sentenced to 4 years in prison. We tried to go much closer to the courthouse, but it was simply surrounded by police and plainclothes officers. And they were actually quite aggressive in forcing the foreign media further away from the courthouse, and that's why we've ended up here. At one point, though, we were a block away from the courthouse, and one of Su Zhiyong's lawyers exited the building. He was quite upset, saying that it was very unfair that Su Zhiyong was going to be put into prison for 4 years. He was surrounded by the foreign media and police, and eventually he was bundled off into a police van. We're not quite sure what happened to him.
I don't want to laugh. Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. Found at LaffeyRadio.com. Once this show is over, you don't have to even listen to it live. We put it up in the air. You can listen to it. And by the way, we just put up another Laffey Minute today about Su Zhiyong, the jailed dissident. I don't even call him a dissident. I mean, this is why I wanted to play this clip and talk to you about it. I mean, it'd be one thing if the guy was inciting riots. I mean, we wouldn't approve of this guy being locked up. I mean, if he's inciting riots, we would. But if he was, you know, do you know what this guy really did? I watched so many of these clips. I read the stories about this guy. I don't know this guy. But there should be much more of a response to what we do with communist China than the State Department in China, which I watched the guy talking about how he didn't like it and it's not helpful. And you can't believe what you're seeing. You can't believe what you're reading. This guy's the guy who's been jailed for 4 years. He was trying to promote the rights of Chinese migrant workers, the children of Chinese migrant workers. That was his number one thing. And he also wanted the Communist Party to just let people know what the size of people's assets were, to just more officials to disclose their assets, which in some cases run into the hundreds of millions of dollars of the 435 or so members, 500 members or so of the Communist Party who really run things, who keep a lot of the money in Vancouver, in Los Angeles, and buying condos in America with their extra money. The man's been jailed for 4 years. And the last line of that clip, he was bundled off. This is the lawyer, not him. I watched the clip, by the way, of the lawyer standing there with looks like, I don't know what they are, the policemen, but they look like army officials, always the heavy coats. I don't care what the temperature is. They always have the heavy coats on. And just basically they're saying, we're not sure where he was taken. So another guy just leaves. He's gone. And that's the country we give a 40% discount to. Like, you want to give a 40% discount to Sweden because they're really nice people. I would disagree, but I wouldn't be like, falling off the back of my chair. We don't give a 40% discount to tyrants in Africa, Cuba, guy runs Venezuela, North Korea, Putin in Russia. Do we give him a 40% discount? I don't know. I know we had during World War II, we had a sort of a land lease, whatever we called that program with him, which we didn't get paid back for, just to help us win the war, because it was an overriding concern to help us win the war. So we gave some stuff to the Soviet Union, which we never got paid for. What's the overriding reason? Large corporations making a huge amount of money? But there's never a connection. There's almost like nothing that happens between this guy being jailed for, again, really just promoting. There's no evidence that I could find this guy had a bomb, was going to blow things up. He's like the Martin Luther King of his day over there. In a smaller way, when a bigger country, he was promoting the rights of the children of migrant workers. Seems like a good thing. Wouldn't be jailed for it. And he simply said that people should disclose, especially in the Communist Party, more of their assets so people can understand. And by the way, when we talk about the Gini coefficient, which is the measure of inequality, and the president will undoubtedly talk about it tonight, it's way worse in communist China. They probably have the biggest skew in the world of inequality. 40% discount, whether it's the currency they manipulate or it's the tariffs that we don't put on them that they put on our products. It's like a 40% discount. Let's play a clip here of here's one of the CNN Dave McKenzie reporters. Listen to this guy. It's a longer clip, but listen to this guy trying to cover this particular trial of Zhu Zhiyong. Excuse my pronunciation, Xu, who's in jail for 4. And by the way, these jails aren't very nice. It's not like the guy's in some low security thing. Hey, let's play the clip. We'll come back and talk about him.
We're heading towards a court in Beijing where a prominent activist goes on trial today. Why? This is a public space. There's no need to shout at me. So the court is just behind us. The name of the activist is Zhu Zhiyong. And the reason he's in trial is because he had a gathering of people several times and was one of the founders of the New Citizens Movement. That is why there are all these police surrounding me here. We're going to go try look at the entrance of the court, which is just here. Hello? Sorry, you can't stop me.
It's all right.
Soon the situation violently escalated. Police and plainclothes men targeting us, taking away our phones and ID and breaking the camera.
Yeah, you can't physically. They're physically manhandling us. They're physically manhandling me. This is a public space. I'm allowed to report. I'm allowed to report. We are reporters. We are reporting in a public space. Ow. Hey, do not physically manhandle us like this.
Other international journalists were roughed up during the trial. One policeman told me they were following orders.
They've moved us from the van into a police car.
A government spokesman said they will investigate the incident, but that without law and order, there will be, quote, chaos in China.
The police and the plainclothes guys drove us to the street corner several blocks away from the court and then just dumped us on the side of the street. We would be shooting this with our camera, but they entirely tore off the front section of the viewfinder so Charlie can't use it at all. This really shows how much China wants to manage the message But in doing so, the irony is they betray some of the strong arm tactics they use against journalists, including us, and obviously it's often far worse for Chinese nationals. David McKenzie, CNN, Beijing.
This goes along with the Communist Party asking certain journalists to leave the country. There was a New York Times reporter asked to leave. I guess someone was asked. They don't ask tough questions of the president, but they're asking some tough questions over there. But you have to watch this clip to believe it. There's a guy standing on a street corner, Dave McKenzie, and he literally isn't doing anything but standing on a street corner, seemingly nowhere near the courtroom. Now, you couldn't tell from the angle. Maybe he was somewhat near it. But he's on a street corner, and these guys just stop pushing him. They break his camera. I'm sure these guys have expensive cameras, too. And they're harassing people. The lawyer for Shea is put in jail, or disappears, we think. Why is this not coming to a head in America? They're going to talk about jobs tonight. We're going to talk about minimum wage in a minute. Communist China's entrance into the World Trade Organization, it's been a total disaster for America because it was so unequal. It's one thing to have free trade with Canada. Okay. And they sell us some lumber. And there's some lumber people in America who don't do as well. We get that. We sell them a lot. They sell us some oil, like the Keystone Pipeline we'd like to get through. And we sell them a lot of computers and whatever. We don't even make computers anymore. We sell them a lot more stuff. And if you look at the classical economics, that probably works. There's a lot of complaining, but we both probably get stronger because of it. After 10, 11 years of doing this, and by the way, it's been longer than that, but since the World Trade Organization allowed Communist China in, that's why we have one of the major reasons we have such a problem with jobs. And raising the minimum wage isn't going to help. It's simply not going to help. We're going to get a little bit of time before this next break here. I wanted to go over something. Probably don't have time, but I'm going to do it anyway. We go to the next topic because I got so many topics I got to cover. Today's Fort Collins, Colorado. I know around the world you're not reading the local newspaper in Fort Collins, but I love this article because there's an article that Fort Collins, where I live, is ranked the fourth biggest drinking problem place, as the fourth biggest drinkers drink the most amount of alcohol, whatever, in America, of any city. But the title of the article is Collective Drinking Problem in Fort Collins, Not So Fast. Not so fast because it can't possibly be, right? Even though you've opened all these brew pubs everywhere, and seemingly everybody on Saturday night is totally drunk, it can't be so. And so they find some professor. This is what I love about these articles. It's the Fort Collins, Coloradoan defending or going against the study and finding anybody they can. They find a guy, Ricky Tolliver, the state coordinator for a trained health statistician. So when asked about the way they did the survey, he said, they added up some of the statistics. And of course, they said, yes. He said, they shouldn't be doing that. But they did it for everybody. It reminds me of when I was trading in Wall Street at the beginning. I was a trader. And everybody was losing a lot of money. It was like 10 days of pain. And it was something to do with the CRB, and it's the Commodity Research Bureau. And people were talking about it in the room. And one guy said, if wheat wasn't going up so badly, it wouldn't hurt, it's a one-time thing. And someone said, gold is being manipulated by blah, 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 and that shouldn't be going up. And some other guy said, oil is contango. It had some crazy explanation. Finally, this guy, Joel Sheriff, the technician, said, if we take everything out, the CRB index is zero. I mean, it doesn't change at all, guys, but that's not really the point. And it made everybody kind of focus like, we can't just deny reality. Reality is that people here drink a lot because there's a lot of brew pubs. When you get to the end of the article, you find that the people who own the brew pubs are, quote, his Odell marketing manager, Amanda Johnson. We're a bit surprised by it. Another brewery points out, we don't keep late hours. We don't have a happy hour. We or offer any discounts on our beer. It's a total denial, even though Fort Collins, Colorado, is the home of the upscale beer drinking place, maybe in America, especially among a middle-sized town. But they've got like a 33% of the people here either binge drinking or getting drunk, and maybe people don't answer the questions correctly. But there is a giant drinking problem in Fort Collins. And rather than deal with it, the local paper wants to say, no, it can't really be true. We'll just ask people. They'll say it's not true. We'll never take the survey and acknowledge it. We'll just ask people who have a vested interest in saying it's not true. And they'll just say it's not true, and we'll put out an article about it. Anyway, that's the local news for you today. Steve Laffey's Fixing America, LaffeyRadio.com. We'll take another break. We'll be right back and talk to you a little bit about some more topics of the day. Be right back.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I am an American soldier.
I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place mission first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined.
Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I am an expert and I am a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
There's strong, and there's Army Strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
Well, I finally did it. I opened a 401k.
What? Why? Just wait for the inheritance. We've definitely got a rich uncle somewhere. We're one call away from the winner's circle at the Derby, dinners with multiple forks, a vacation home in the country, using summer as a verb.
You don't actually think that, do you?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs, the Rhode Island Society of CPAs, and the Ad Council.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared.
It's like tiny nails in the air poke my lungs.
I start to cough. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
Today, 1 out of 13 children suffer from some form of asthma, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all emergency room visits.
I feel like I'm choking. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. A little whistle sound comes out when I breathe.
But while your child may suffer from asthma doesn't have to make your child suffer. There are simple ways you can prevent your child's next attack. To learn more, log on to www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
But I'm afraid that the millennials, if you will, are less likely to sign up. I think they feel more independent. I think they feel even a little more invulnerable than prior generations. But I don't think we're going to get enough young people signing up to make this bill work as it was intended to financially. And frankly, there's some legitimacy to their concern, because the government itself spends about $7 on the elderly for every dollar it spends on the young. I just don't know how we're going to do it, frankly. If I had a solution, I'd be telling the president right now.
Wow, that's a Democrat congressman out of Virginia. That's Jim Moran, who doesn't know how we're going to do it. And he's citing the enrollments of a lack thereof of young people into Obamacare, and citing how we spend much more money on old people versus young people and so forth. And now young people, for whatever reason, aren't going to do this. Maybe they're more independent. Maybe they just looked at the fine and said, hey, whatever, I'll do what they do in Massachusetts, which Romney came up with. We'll just wait till we get sick and then we'll show up and bust the system. And they can't deny us anyway. But it's actually worse than that. And the reason we wanted to talk a little about that is that, and even talking about this last segment, I just talked about a little article about Fort Collins. Many people in government and in newspapers just live in denial. Like, the facts are presented to them, and they just try to get around it. Like, there's no getting around some of these facts, whether Fort Collins, Colorado has a drinking problem or not, which obviously you would expect more people to be drinking if there's a brew pub on every corner, right? And now they're going to be smoking dope because there's going to be a dope shop on every corner. So people be drinking and smoking, and next to be sticking needles in their arms, and they'll be lying on the ground. But that's the way it's going here. But there's another article that came out today, which is why we played this clip, and it's a shocking number. We spent $1.2 billion for 6 state sites flops. This is Investors Business Daily. And they go out and take the statistics. And let me just tell you how much money we've spent. And I know we spent a great deal of money on this website that you're looking at right now, LaffeyRadio.com. But nowhere near $1.2 billion. Nowhere near what they spent on the $700 million to develop a website for America. But here's some statistics that you just need to know. The Obama administration showered grants. These were grants. These are on states whose exchanges are failing. In Hawaii, they got a grant of $205 million for their website and so forth. They have 2,192 people signed up. That's like $100,000, $90,000 a person. In Maryland, $171 million they got in grants. They got 18,000 people signed up. They're doing a lot better. Massachusetts, now here's the key. You would think Massachusetts already had Romneycare, which he proudly defended and said it wasn't anything like Obamacare, and thereby lost the presidential election. What a nice man, too. It's a new documentary out called Mitt, I guess. I'm gonna try to get it and watch it. Heck of a nice guy. He's a great family man. I don't know who told him to say what he said during the campaign. I don't know who told him to get on a giant boat. I can't get over the fact that Mitt Romney, when I decided to drive up to hang out with the people at Mount Rushmore and go over and see the Custer's Last Stand on July 4th of 2012, just to take my kids, see great American history, that he decided, no, I'm getting a large boat and whip around Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire, so everybody can say what a rich guy I am. Not that he did it for that reason. He just wasn't thinking. He's just so far removed from regular people. But in his state of Massachusetts, they were given $179 million, which you say to yourself, why would they get any money in grants? They signed up 5,400 more people. It says here that Massachusetts had a functioning website that Governor Romney used, which they always stick a needle in his eye. Obama used as a model for Obamacare. Thank you, Investors Business Daily. But Massachusetts had to rebuild its site to accommodate Obamacare. Like, it doesn't go into it, and it shouldn't. It's a short article. Why? Despite $179 million in federal grants, the resulting Massachusetts Health Connector, all these Orwellian terms, they're the connectors, right? Has been a little short of disaster. It's a disaster. They signed up a mere 5,400 people. And it's trying to get a refund. By the way, there's a company called CGI. It looks like they do all the websites, and everybody's trying to get their money back now. They're trying to get the money back from CGI. But back to some of these other states, and I'll go through them quickly because we got other states to talk about. Minnesota, $155 million went to that state, 19,000 signups. Oregon, $305 million, 18,000 signups. Vermont, it's like 400,000 people in Vermont. Like 400,000 people. They got $172 million. The heck is going on? They signed up 15,000 people, which on a percentage basis, they're probably doing relatively well compared to the other ones. But they're all flops. No one can build a website. Nobody can make it work. All these government workers, is there any better case that they can't do it, that we need less of it than what we're seeing here? There's no better case. So in the end, the last line, just so you guys, right there, the Obama administration sent nearly $900 million to 35 states for exchanges that never got built. Some states subsequently returned some of the money, but that was the plan. Disaster. Anyway, we got to get into another subject here, but I want to talk to you about these car crash tests. I'll play this clip here. I came out with these small cars. It leads us into talking about CAFE, corporate average fuel economy standards that have been going on for a long time, and sort of my changing opinion on it. But here's the most recent car crash test of the smallest cars that we make, like that Fiat 500 thing, that little Italian car that whips around in the commercials. Here, listen to this.
The smallest cars sold in America did badly, really badly, in crash tests conducted by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. A total of 11 subcompacts and microcars were put through the Institute's small overlap front crash test. That's a test in which a car going 40 miles an hour hits a barrier with just the outside portion of its front bumper. It replicates a kind of real-world crash that causes a lot of serious injuries every year. Of all those cars, only the Chevrolet Spark earned a rating of better than marginal. It got the Institute's second best rating of acceptable. Most of the others earned a rating of poor in the test, while the Mazda 2, Kia Rio, and Toyota Yaris were deemed marginal. In almost all these cars, the Institute said, crash test results indicated likely injuries to the left leg. In the Fit and the 500, injuries were likely to both legs. By the way, according to the Institute, tests like these only indicate how safe you are in a crash with a similarly sized vehicle. If you're driving one of these, you're much more likely to crash into something larger. In that case, the results would likely be much worse.
And if you ever watch this clip, they smash a car and they take it like, just picture a wall, but half the wall's missing. So you smash on the left-hand side, as the driver's side, into the wall. To say that one of your left leg might get hurt when you see these crashes that are designed to crash into similar small cars, I mean, you got a pretty hardy leg if only one leg. The people are the fake people, you know, the dummy bodies. They're whipping around. I know they got airbags now. And so think about smashing into my F-250, head-on collision, or my Nissan NV that seats 12, which is probably bigger than my Nissan, all made in America, by the way, or my Ford Expedition. I drive the three biggest passenger or trucks, I guess you can buy. I guess an F-350 is bigger, but passenger. I buy the biggest ones. I got 6 kids. I wanted to be safe. And so the complete denial, and I go back to 2006 when I ran for the Senate, and I thought as part of a program for national defense purposes to get off foreign oil, before we came up with all this natural gas, that one of the things we probably should try to slowly but surely increase CAFE standards. This is the corporate average fuel economy standards. That means that if Ford makes cars, usually they exempt SUVs and trucks, heavy trucks. But the average one's going to get 27 miles an hour. And I don't have it in front of me. I could be wrong about what we thought, but I thought we were going to try to get to like 27 to 30 miles an hour, 27 miles an hour over the next 10 years. And so I went back and looked at some old articles. I went back as far as 2009, and that's when they were 27 by then, and they were trying to get them to 35. And the Wall Street Journal had an article in 2009, small cars are dangerous cars. And so we've been talking about this for years. Then they came out with an article, why crash tests have automakers looking to 2017, because it looks as though under Obama, it's one thing to say 27 or even 30. To say 54.5, that's the new standard. There's no way you're getting to 54.5. And it was said that it was picked by Team Obama because it had an impressive sounding headline number, 54.5. I don't know why that was the headline number. But we can get the average due to efficiencies in engines and so forth, but we can't replace all the steel with lighter aluminum, and we don't pay $9 a gallon, so people aren't going to make the switch. So the rock hits the hard place, but the safety of Americans has got to come pretty high up there. So it's time for everybody to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? We've got a lot of cheap natural gas, and cars will be running off natural gas, and we know the electric car is coming. May not be coming, with Tesla, but it might be. But if you're the fast forward guy, the lead guy in buying the $100,000 Tesla, there'll be more fuel efficient cars. But man, I don't think we're getting to 54 unless the electric car takes over. But you can see, go watch this crash test, and your eyes will pop out of what it looks like when you're crashing one of these smaller cars into just a wall that's supposed to configure a head-on crash with a car of the same size, which is kind of unlikely when there's right on the highway. You've seen those 18-wheel trucks? There's a lot of them on the highway. Anyway, Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We're not going to get to all the topics again, but we'll come back and talk about Iran a little bit. Be right back.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I'm in almost every school bus and classroom. I go to school with your children. We say the Pledge of Allegiance together. You see me around the neighborhood, and you tell me that I'm a pretty good kid. Well, I'm one out of every 5 children in America, and I'm struggling with hunger. This problem is closer than you think. My teacher tells me we can grow up to be whatever we want. I want to grow up to be someone who doesn't go to bed hungry. There's enough food in this country to feed everybody. Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 8 meals for kids like me, quietly struggling with hunger. Together, we are Feeding America, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Students, when I call the reason for your absences throughout the years, please exit the auditorium without your high school diploma. Too tired, family trip, sick day, starting the holidays early.
Starting in the 6th grade, students who miss 18 days or more of school in a year for any reason will fall behind and risk not graduating high school. How many days of school has your child missed this year? Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
The call to serve. It has no sound, yet I have heard it in the whispered retelling of honorable sacrifices made by those who have served before me. The call to serve has no form, yet I have clearly seen it. In the eyes of men and women infinitely more courageous and more driven than most. The call to serve has no weight, yet I have held it in my hands. I will commit to carry it close to my heart until my country is safe and the anguish of those less fortunate has been soothed. The call to serve is at once invisible and always present. And for those who choose to answer the call, for their country, for their fellow man, for themselves, it is the most powerful force on earth. America's Navy, a global force for good.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey. President Barack Obama will sign an executive order setting the minimum wage for workers under new federal contracts at $10.10 an hour, the White House said Tuesday. The president will announce the increase during his State of the Union address. The increase from a national minimum wage of $7.25 an hour will not affect existing federal contracts, only new ones. Moreover, contract renewals will not be affected unless other terms of the agreement change. The order would be one of the biggest examples in the State of the Union of Obama's vow to use presidential authority to push for policies by circumventing Congress.
Steve Laffey, Steve Laffey's Fixing America. That was a great announcer there doing that clip. That was wonderful. But LaffeyRadio.com, by the way. And don't forget, tomorrow we're going to take the State of the Union address and we're going to dissect it. We're going to play it. And you may have to listen for 3 straight days, depending on how long he talks, because I'm going to talk a lot, it looks like. And so it might be a 3-day show, which we've never done before. But tune in tomorrow at 1 o'clock where we'll just start the show. Don't even listen to him tonight. Just tune in tomorrow. Why would you listen tonight? Listen tomorrow. And if you're not listening live, you can always put it on your iPhone or whatever you want to put it on, and just listen to it on the way home or before you go to bed, in your car, whatever it is. But you heard him say. So the question, first of all, there's one basic point we're going to make about minimum wage. If you can raise the minimum wage and get more demand for workers, then there is no economist that we should be talking to. No economic theory should be taught. Economics should not be a major in college. All the Nobel Prizes in economics, including Milton Friedman, should be given back, because there's really only one thing that stands, there's one rule of economics that Keynes and Friedman and Ricardo and Smith and Hayek would agree to, is that if you raise the price of something, you'll get less demand for it. Oranges, if they're $3 each, right? And that would be a lot. And if you raise them to $6 each, people would eat lemons or mangoes or bananas, right? Do we all get this? So to deny that, especially when the minimum wage was never designed from the very beginning to be a wage that anybody would make a living for a family of four off of. Wasn't designed for that. And when you raise it, like, by the way, we'll get to that in a second, can he even do it? But when you raise it, you are hurting. You are hurting poorer people. You are hurting people who just get out of prison. You are hurting 18-year-old young black kids in inner cities because people will and do, and I've seen them do it, whether it's a coffee shop, whether it's a manufacturing concern, whether it was me kicking a press. Ever kick a press, by the way? Go look up kicking a press. I kicked a press as a job at one point, making pins for minimum wage. So don't sit there, Laffey went to Harvard Business School, blah, blah, blah. I know what, but I made minimum wage. It was never designed to feed my family of six. I don't even know, I mean, we can talk about monopsony and all kinds of different economic theory, but then you take it to the second point, which means now I'll never get to 7 topics. The second point is, if he can't do it, if we keep saying that in the papers that he's going to do it on executive authority, what's the executive authority? Not Republicans, not Democrats, not punsters, not radio talk show hosts. No one seems to give a reason. I suggest we go back to the Constitution and see if he can do this stuff. Why can't he just raise the wages to a different minimum wage for federal people who work on federal projects, say kind of building a roof at the White House, to raise the minimum wage for them and not for you? I mean, how can the president just do this? I don't think he can, and he must be stopped. And maybe that's what we should be talking about. Maybe that's the movement. This has to stop. We're going to have to go to Washington and stop this. Like, not like me, like 1 million people. Like all the cars, beeping horns like I saw in Tennessee and Nashville when they tried to put a state income tax in there several times when I was down there. People just drive around, beeping horns, radio shows, broadcasts. We'll get bossed to broadcast. I'll be in an RV. We'll just keep going around until they stop this nonsense. Anyway, another topic I wanted to get to, and it's about the president again. Obama gets pledges from big business on unemployed workers. So there are large corporations that have signed pledges that they will not discriminate against workers who have been unemployed for a long time. One, why would they? Who would do that? I've hired people. What's the purpose? You hire people that can fit the job description. What do I care if they've been employed for a year or 3 months? If I need someone to be an analyst, what do I even care? I just got to ascertain whether or not they're the right person for the job. And if they're not quite right, can they grow into the job? I mean, some people you hire, I know, weren't exactly the best fit for the job, but I thought they had the most upside. Like they were hungrier, which is what I look for. They wanted to make a lot more money, which is what I look for, especially in the private sector. The public sector, we couldn't pay them anymore. So the question is, this is absolute corporatism, where Xerox, by the way, write down these names and let's not deal with them. AT&T, Lockheed Martin, not that we ever really deal with them. Procter & Gamble, hard to avoid buying. I guess you can buy detergent from somebody else. Xerox, which we can totally avoid. Xerox is still in business. But anyway, these are the type of companies that think it's great to be in bed with the president. They embrace corporatism. They embrace it. They're looking for a favor coming back. That's what they're doing. That's why they're doing it. But you can go back. Someone wrote in the LA Times today about this is what Hoover used to do. He'd go to all the companies would pledge never to reduce wages, and he'd get on the phone with people. And he looked like a complete failure because all you'd see is him. We talked to so-and-so last week about keeping wages the same. And of course, when things changed, everybody fled. When price of steel went down precipitously, people had to cut the wages. They cut them, and they forgot about these pledges. So they're meaningless. It's already illegal to discriminate against people, right? So why? The question I'd ask, has AT&T been discriminating against people and they're going to stop it now? Who are the people they've been discriminating against? In what states where it's illegal? Maybe we should go after them. I'm joking. I'm not going after them. But it just. By the way, tonight's. I don't know what we're going to do about when they introduce everybody. The President Reagan, I think, was the guy who originated having one guest get up and point to the audience and say, "Hey, we got Joe here." I forget who it was. I shouldn't forget. It was a nice gesture, I guess. And now I bet you tonight there'll be like 15 people. It won't be about the State of the Union. It's going to be a show, and it's going to be. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll talk about it tomorrow. probably interrupt myself all the time. Let me leave you with this because we're not going to get to Iran. To sum up on Iran, can't get to it. Sum up on Iran. We've talked about it before. They're not dismantling anything. The White House says they're dismantling things. When you talk to the Iranian foreign minister, they're not dismantling anything. He can't find it. He said we're just going to unhook some things for a while. So that's all he's going to do. And they're going to hook them right back up. It's a total disaster. And I think it reads to this poll that we have, which I think I'll bring. I'll just leave it on my desk tomorrow. We'll end the show. I'll leave it here. When we're doing the State of the Union tomorrow, when we're reviewing it, I'll bring some of it up. But if you had to decide one or two words that best describe the United States of America, what would you say? Well, what did Americans say in this poll? Number one, divided. Number two, troubled. Number three, deteriorating. Those are the three most common words that describe to Americans where we are today. I'm not so sure in 79, before Reagan came in, we would have said the same thing. I'm going to have to go back and look it up. It's a total lack of leadership. And it gets back, by the way, since the rise of modern polling in the 1930s, this article goes into from the Wall Street Journal, only George Bush has begun his 6th year in the White House on rockier ground than Obama. Get this part. Large majorities of respondents said they want the White House and lawmakers to focus on job creation as their number one thing, early childhood education. And it's actually, most people, by a slim majority, favor increasing the minimum wage, which brings you back to another thing. It's not about following when you're an elected official. It's about leading. It's about convincing. It's convincing people that raising the minimum wage is a disaster, especially for poor young black kids and kids in inner cities. It's terrible for them. Why would you want to do it? Why would you want to hurt them? But think about this. George Bush in his 6th year, President Obama in his 5th year. What do they have in common about job creation? I said it before in the show. And if you think communist China, you're right. If you think back and say, why did we let him into the World Trade Organization? You're right. But there's not enough of a connection because that's who buys the ads. Large corporations who like it just the way it is, manufacturing in China, sending the goods back to America, making billions, keeping lots of it offshore, and meanwhile people wandering around the what used to be the major cities of Cleveland and Canton and not so much Canton, I suppose, Youngstown, a big manufacturing hub, Ohio, Indiana. Travel down Route 90, and you'll see our society breaking apart. We've got to make the connection for people. Then they'll get it. They get it too. If you ask them separately, they know communist China is a problem. But if you can't, people just not putting together. By the way, the number one problem really is along with the budget deficit. And it says an objective that Mr. Obama hasn't emphasized recently. Recently? He's never emphasized it. But this is it. I'm going to keep this right here. And we can go through some of these poll results. Not that I care about polls that much. By the way, more people think it's okay to smoke pot and make it legal than not. Another thing we got to convince people that's not the right way to look at it. In fact, tomorrow there'll be a Fixing America Presents on marijuana. So tune in tomorrow morning. You can just put that up there about my thoughts on marijuana and pot and legalizing it and what's happening in Colorado. And my hope is that people figure out what's happening in Colorado and say, I don't want it here. Anyway, we're finishing up the show. Got 5 more topics here to cover. We didn't cover Iran. Didn't play any clips from them. Hope you got enough across to you. Tune in tomorrow. There'll be a big show. Let's take the State of the Union address and critically examine it as we listen to it. We can stop it, we can play it, we can talk about it, and we can keep going. And it may take several days to get through, I don't know. But anyway, Steve Laffey's Fixing America, LaffeyRadio.com. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be back. God bless you. Steve Laffey signing out.
You've been listening to Steve Laffey's Fixing America radio program on the Laffey Radio Network. Fixing America is broadcast Monday through Friday afternoons at 3 p.m. right here at www.laffeyradio.com. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or account of this broadcast without the express written consent of Laffey Network, LLC is prohibited.